First Pick, the CBS Sports NFL Draft Podcast. Rick, you know what episode this is?
Is it my Paramount Plus subscription?
It is your age, Rick. This is episode 60. Can you believe it?
Wow. Can you believe I'm 60?
I can't. You don't look a day over 58. All right. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. And I hope everyone had a great Father's Day, including you, Rick. I know I did. Yeah?
Yeah. No, we traveled, went back to Minnesota for the first time since I was fired.
All right.
Friends and family. And so it was great. I had saw my sons that still live in Minnesota. So that was, we had a great Father's Day.
All right. Great. It was nice weather here. Took the dog for the walk. We went to a friend's high school graduation party. And then it came back and beat my kids in basketball. So win for me too. All right. Love it. All right. Today, we're going to break down on a more serious note, Rick. We're going to break down Pete Prisco's top 100 players list, but from a draft perspective, which means you get a lot of yelling and screaming from Rick about the list. Which young players are on the list, but too low? We'll answer that. Which young players were left off entirely? We'll answer that too. Which rookies have the best chance of making the list next summer? We'll even answer that. And there's a great chance Rick raises his voice in the process. In case you missed it, last week, we talked NFL mini camps. Rick reported back from the old Bucs mini camp where he got an up-close look at Baker Mayfield. And we also looked at the rookie quarterbacks and how they're developing across the league some 6 weeks into their new jobs. Check that out in the old podcast feed. As always, please consider subscribing, hitting the thumbs up on the YouTube, or leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps us with the AI overlord algorithm machine. And you know what else helps, Rick? If you guys who support us, those people who watch or listen, share the podcast. So if the spirit moves, you tell a friend. One last thing.
What do they get for that?
They get a virtual high five from Rick Spielman. And those things are in shorts. There it is. That could be your future. One last thing, Rick.
Do that again, Rick. Let's get a clean version.
Wait, I got aim at
Keep it in the camera. Well,
oh, God.
Boom.
All right, he got it. There you go. He just gave away 25 high fives for free. That could be your future if you tell a friend about the podcast, subscribe, thumbs up, all other stuff. One last thing, Rick. While we have our listeners and viewers covered here with the First Pick when it comes to the NFL draft, we're probably not your go-to source for NBA draft coverage, but that's okay. Man, look at old Matt Norlander there, smooth and handsome on the. If you're watching on the YouTubes there. CBS Sports HQ has got your back. On Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, the HQ team will conduct their final mock draft. There's no way they did 50 like we did, Rick, but that's okay. Tune in and see if anyone is as ordinary as Rick, probably not, or has worse dad jokes, definitely not. Then on Thursday, watch the NBA draft coverage from 7 p.m. Eastern to midnight. Check out HQ, the free 24/7 streaming network on CBS Sports app or CBSSports.com live. Rick, who do you think is going to be the first overall pick in the NBA draft?
That's what I don't know. I was going to say, don't you think it would be funny if we had our NBA draft podcast and we did our top 10 mock draft on the NBA guys?
I think the only person I know is, I can't even pronounce his name. It starts with a W. The tall kid from, I think he's French. He's going to be the first overall pick. Do you know his name?
Yeah, no, I don't, but I saw highlights on him, and he's supposed to be the next coming.
This guy is Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning combined. It seems like Victor Wembanyama.
There it is. Victor's his first name, right? He's French. Did I get that part right?
Yep.
How old is he?
19.
Oh boy,
maybe 18.
So let me ask you this: when you say Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck, all those guys combined, is he going to have? He looks slight of frame because he's 12 feet tall? Is he going to come in and be good right away, or are we going to have to wait around and see?
I think he's going to be good right away.
Oh, okay.
I'm still waiting around for Zion, see if he can stay healthy and actually live up to his number 1 overall billing in the next coming.
All right, Rick, I have another NBA question for you, and then we'll move on here. Can you name another player that's going to get drafted in this draft? Because I'm not sure if I can.
I haven't studied it enough. I was studying Pete Prisco's top 100 and trying to pick that apart, which was very easy to do. But we'll get into that here shortly.
That's a great segue. That's a good answer.
I learned that as a tease. Debo taught me that when you're on these, you want to tease as something upcoming that will keep listeners listening, knowing that we're going to talk about Pete Prisco and his top 100 players and people that should have been on there that were eliminated.
So you also got the memo from Debo about teases to leave out the part where you're going to tell a dad joke, because that tends to make people angry.
Remember, I'm just a consultant and a supporting actor. I'm not on the memos.
All right, let's get to it, Rick. You mentioned Pete Prisco's top 100 list. That came out last week. We asked Pete to come on the show. He told us unequivocally no. I think he's scared. He said he's going on vacation for a month, in quotation marks. I don't know who does that in this line of work, but whatever, Pete, you do you. So we'll talk Pete's top 100. If you want to hear him make excuses for his picks, you can go check out the Pick Six podcast. He was on there last week with old Willie Boy Brinson and Katie Mox. But in the meantime, we're going to do our part here, Rick, and let's start at the top. 5 of these 100 picks, and this list comes out every summer. Presumably it changes. 5 of these picks were former Rick Spielman draft picks. And every one of them, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Christian Darrisaw, Dalvin Cook, Harrison Smith, have been featured on Rick's picks, which was something we did early on in the podcast back in the fall. As we were getting this podcast off the ground, you would tell the sort of behind the scenes story of how you and the Vikings came together to land all these fantastic players. At the top of the list, of course, is Justin Jefferson, who is 7th on Pete's list, and 7th sounds about right. I don't think there's any animosity towards Justin Jefferson going 7. He's also the first wide receiver off the board. I'm guessing you're okay with that as well. What do you think about Justin Jefferson going 7?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if it makes Pete happy, I'm happy for Pete. That's what this whole thing is. No, that's a fair assessment. Although I think will have an opportunity if he keeps going the way he's going, continuing to climb. So,
all right, let me. I got this thing sorted here. So Pete had 19 wide receivers go in this top 100, which feels high, but I mean, there's skill positions. You need a wide receiver to have success. 2 of these wide receivers were rookies, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, but I'll just mention some names directly after Justin Jefferson among the wide receivers. Second on the list was Tyreek Hill, and he was 12th overall. The third wide receiver was Jamar Chase. He was 16th overall, and I'll mention 2 more. Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs. They were 17th and 20th, respectively, overall. Any of those players would you take ahead of Justin Jefferson?
No, not right now.
Okay.
No,
right.
Not the way Justin's going. And then I saw a couple clips of him at the mini camp, and when he pulled the one-hander down, thrown behind him, it's Justin Jefferson. So he's bona fide, I think, superstar, and is going to get, I think, paid accordingly coming up here relatively right near or at training camp, and then but well-deserved.
Let me ask you this. How are you working this negotiation for Justin Jefferson? He's going to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. It's
not going to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. It's going to be probably one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the NFL, is where I'm guessing this is going to go.
Okay. Well, that also automatically makes him the highest paid wide receiver. But let me ask you, if you're the general manager and you're trying to juggle a salary cap, well, Kirk Cousins is in the last year of his deal, so you don't have to pay. You're not paying Russell Wilson money to the quarterback, but so maybe that's that. I guess that's good, right? In one sense.
Yeah, no, that's why they started clearing the cap room with the Dalvin Cooks, the Adam Thielens, the Eric Kendricks, the Patrick Petersons, because they have to get ready to extend not only Justin Jefferson, but I imagine if you trade and gave up what you gave up for TJ Hawkinson, that you're going to have to extend him as well.
Yeah, that's so it's good in the sense that your veteran quarterback is in the last year of his deal. If you plan on moving on from him and not having to pay him what you're paying him, the downside is you don't have a veteran quarterback who can get the ball to Justin Jefferson. So let me ask you this. Let's say you had something less than Russell Wilson's deal, which is one of the worst deals as we sit here for quarterbacks. It could get better if he improves, of course. How do you juggle that with now trying to pay Justin Jefferson? What are you just clearing out everything else on the roster and you have 2 players basically? Well, how do you do that?
Yeah, no, those are tough decisions to make, but you can't let Justin Jefferson leave. He's
right
at his age, so whatever you have to do to juggle the salary cap. Again, there's cap accounting and then there's cash, and cash will be significant, but you're able to significantly manipulate the cap in order to fit guys. But at some point, like we saw with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, since I was just there, eventually that catches up to you. So you have to juggle around and make those type of decisions. So,
Yeah.
but that's why they probably weren't as active in free agency, because your cap planning and your financial planning for future years as well, knowing that you have to get Justin done, you have to get TJ Hawkinson done, because of draft capital you gave up for him in the trade last year. And then, the other guy that's going to be coming down the pipe and everything I'm hearing about is Christian Darrisaw too.
All right, well, let's talk about Christian Darrisaw. That's an important point, by the way, because I know some Vikings fans were wondering why the team wasn't doing anything in free agency. They had a plan. They weren't just on vacation. They understood that you got to pay Justin Jefferson and the money doesn't magically materialize. The other thing worth noting, you talked about the Buccaneers sort of having to pay the piper. The good news is they beat the clock, and the clock being they got their Super Bowl ring before they had to blow everything up. So mission accomplished. Like, you're not complaining about that, right?
No,
Yeah.
they got a ring just like the LA Rams. I mean,
Exactly.
blowing everything up and went from F those picks to please give us as many picks as we possibly can.
Oh, Rick is on one today. All right, let's talk about Christian Darrisaw. Again, we've talked about him with Rick's picks, and Rick, feel free to go into any detail you want on the Rick's picks versions of these players, because as Debo notes, that was back in the fall, and a lot of folks probably haven't heard those stories, and if they have, they probably want to hear them again if they're Vikings fans. But Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech, he is Pete will tell you, because Pete will tell you when he's right, never mentions anything when he's wrong. He was a huge Christian Darrisaw guy coming out. And I thought Christian Darrisaw was going to be a good player. I didn't know that he was going to be who he is, but that's why you're Rick Spielman and he's Pete Prisco. So Christian Darrisaw comes in at 56 on this list, the offensive tackle. And so just give a quick backstory about how you and the Vikings ended up with Darrisaw back during that 2021 draft, I believe.
Yeah, no, that was a year that we were Vera Tucker was there. We knew we needed an offensive lineman. We ended up trading with the Jets. We moved down, I believe, just going off the top of my head. We actually tried to move back up, because what I've talked about in previous podcasts is you have to know where the threat is of you potentially losing a player. So we knew that the Las Vegas Raiders were going to probably take an offensive lineman, and also the Indianapolis Colts. So we actually tried to trade up to try to get at or right ahead of Las Vegas. Las Vegas ended up taking Leatherwood, which we were relieved. We didn't have him as high on our board as we had Darrisaw.
That's a nice way of putting it, but go ahead.
And then we moved down, and then we went back and forth on who we would take if the Colts ended up going with Darrisaw, because they needed a left tackle at the time too. We ended up staying where we were. The Colts ended up taking the defensive end pass rusher from Michigan,
Kwity Paye.
And then that's how we ended up with Darrisaw. We were very lucky. And when you watched him, and there was no question about his athleticism, Darrisaw had to get a little stronger, but it almost like he looked nonchalant at times because it was so easy for him, because he was such a fluid mover.
Right.
The question was, he had that groin surgery or that groin issue coming out. So he came in injured. We had to repair that. He had some struggles, wasn't able to get completely healthy until probably halfway through his rookie season. And then once he got over that, they said he came back in this year stronger and great shape. So with him as focused as he is and with the talent he has, I saw him, and maybe I'm way off base, a lot of Trent Williams in him, the type of athlete that he was. And, whether he develops into that good of left tackle is yet to be seen. But I know that that he has got a chance to be one of the premier left tackles in this league from what we've seen last year. And if he continues to he has to stay healthy. He has had some durability issues, but if he's able to stay healthy, I think he'll be one of the premier left tackles in the league.
As Debo notes for some detail there, Rick, you traded down from 14 to 23 in that draft. 14 is where Elijah Vera Tucker went to the Jets. You got 2 third-round picks as part of that deal, and man, that was close. Like you could have lost Darisaw pretty easily.
Oh my God, those are the moments in the draft where you just like are sweating, just like I talked about when Adrian Peterson, my first draft in Minnesota, and that 10 minutes. With a team ahead of you picking, and you have everybody's sitting on pins and needles as you can hear a pin drop, waiting to hear that name from the team that is ahead of you and who they select. And once they select a name that you didn't have your sights on, it's the biggest sense of, I don't know if it's relief, excitement, or whatever it is, but it's an unbelievable sensation when the board does fall your way. And fortunately, it fell our way that night. And that was my last draft, and I got fired after that. So
you went out with a bang. So you did your part. It wasn't your fault, Rick. And you.
It's all. Yeah, it is.
All right, let me ask you this. So in terms of the offensive tackles on Pete's list, Darisaw ranks 7th among those offensive tackles. He's 56th overall. And some of the tackles ahead of him, and tell me how you would have this list sorted. I'll just go at the top. Number 1 is Trent Williams. Number 2 is Lane Johnson. Number 3 is Andrew Thomas. Number 4, Tristan Wirfs, who you saw last week and spoke with him. He's moving over from the right to the left side, and I think he'll probably have a lot of success because he's a great player. Then Laramie Tunzel at 5, Rashawn Slater at 6, and then Christian Darisaw. How does that list strike you?
I think it's on, although I'd probably put Wirfs up ahead.
Ahead of Andrew Thomas, maybe 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he is very talented and an all-pro type. And watching him move around on the left as a left tackle, and I know it's mini camp and it's limited, you're not in pads, but I don't think he'll have any issues transitioning over to the left side because of his athleticism. And when he did come out back in Iowa, I know he played on the right side, but there was a lot of people were discussing that whoever drafted him put him over on the left side because he's that athletic and that talented. So by him going to the left side and anticipating that he will probably play as well as he did on the right side, that he's going to get a significant contract, especially what the left tackles are getting paid today.
Which brings us back to, all right, you're paying Justin Jefferson. You got to pay Darisaw. The quarterback situation is going to be a tricky one. That's going to be something worth watching because you can sign a veteran, a Jimmy Garoppolo type who's healthy, but if you're not getting the productivity that you're getting out of Kirk Cousins or better, I don't know if it matters who else is on the field. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, but I can agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. I'm doing podcasts
now. Fair enough. All right, let's talk quickly about Dalvin Cook, who also made Pete's Top 100. He's currently looking for a team. I don't think he'll be able to work much longer. He ranked 94th out of 100 players, and he was 9th among all 9 running backs that made the top 100. And a few of the names ahead of him: Saquon Barkley at 54, Austin Eckler at 70, the only undrafted player on this list, and then Alvin Kamara at 88. How do you feel about Dalvin Cook at 94, and how much tread do you think's left on those tires, given that he's battled some injuries, but when he's on the field and healthy, he's a difference maker?
Yeah, no, I still think he can be a difference maker, and I believe he did finally got his shoulder fixed this offseason. I know that was an issue for a couple years, and with him playing with the shoulder that he had, because I can't tell you how many times that shoulder popped out, that he wore a harness. But he is one tough hombre. And the biggest thing that Minnesota is going to miss is he was the heartbeat of that team, the team leader in the locker room, team leader on the field. And that's going to be, I believe, missed up in Minnesota for not only what he brings on the field, but what he brings from a leadership standpoint as well.
No, I agree. And have you talked on HQ or elsewhere about some landing spots that make sense for him?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
What do you have?
Miami is because that's his hometown. And
wait a second though. What about all the players they already have on that roster?
I know, but can you imagine Cook on that roster? And I understand they have Wilson, they have Mostert, they drafted A-Chain.
Yeah.
Certain Wilson have durability issues, but to throw a playmaker like Cook to go along with Waddle and Hill, that would be a very, very explosive offense and another huge playmaker. And Miami has kind of went the route of they had all those draft picks, but they've used those draft picks to try to go out and trade for Tyreek Hill, to go try out
Yeah.
and trade for Nick Chubb. So they're in an arms race to catch the Buffalo Bills, I believe, in the AFC East. That's where the division, in my opinion, that had the biggest, we talked about last year in the AFC West and all the arms race that went on out there with, the Chargers going and get Mack and going to get the corner, who ended up getting hurt this year. With Denver going out and get Russell Wilson, everybody trying to catch the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, it seemed like it shifted to the AFC East this year. And I think Chris Greer has done a phenomenal job trying to go out and utilize those draft picks and trying to get quality, players that were able to get them over the hump this year and try to get
Jalen Ramsey as well.
And Jalen Ramsey and Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio might be their biggest
the biggest X factor they hired.
And yeah, absolutely.
So if Tua can stay healthy, I went out to say that I'm not going to shy away from the Miami Dolphins, but passing up the Buffalo Bills and winning the AFC East this year if Tua can stay healthy.
Yeah, that's a big if. But to your point, helping Tua stay healthy is someone like Dalvin Cook in the backfield. So if you have, I guess you don't have too many running backs and too few, given the injury concern. So, all right, I won't push back too hard on that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Rick is going to tell us which former member of Rick's picks got snubbed on Pete Prisco's Top 100 right after this.
And how about this? Get ready for non-stop action that will have you say, "You gotta be kidding!" Oh my, Canada! What a play and what a finish! That's some pretty good football, eh? He's gone all the way to the house. It's the Canadian Football League, Friday on CBS Sports Network.
All right, Rick. There were 100 players on Pete's Top 100. 12 of those players were edge rushers. None of those players were named Danielle Hunter. Please explain to me what happened here.
Yeah, I don't know. I should ask Pete that because I know Danielle, he was, I think, set an NFL record for most sacks before someone turned 25 years old. And then, unfortunately, he had the neck issue that ended up leading to surgery that ended up him missing some time. And their defense wasn't very good last year at all. But Danielle still had 10.5 sacks. I think you saw the signs of him finally recovering from that neck injury. And I think he is back to where Danielle was before the neck injury. So I was kind of surprised that he didn't make the list. And the other one that I was a little surprised on, I know he's not a Kirk Cousins fan, but Kirk Cousins not even in the top 100 to try to, after he won 8 come from behind victories last year, setting an NFL record. I know they didn't advance in the playoffs, but to me, Danielle Hunter was the one that still belongs up in that top 100 list.
Yeah, so Danielle Hunter, third-round pick out of LSU. When you take guys in the third round, you talked about this before, you don't necessarily think they're going to be starters. I'm guessing he exceeded every expectation you had after you drafted him and once you got to see him on the field.
The third rounders were the guys you wanted to be eventual starters. I think when you got into Saturday as the guys that were role players. If you got lucky, end up being really good starters. But for the most part, being able to start games and win games with, but you don't know if they can line up for a 17-game season and match up with all the red and blues, which would be the really good starters of the Pro Bowlers week in and week out. Danielle had so much upside, and I give a lot of credit to Andre Patterson, who's a D-line coach with the Giants right now, for developing Danielle. He's had a history and was one of the best D-line coaches I've ever been around. And I went down with him and George Edwards, who was the defensive coordinator at the time, who's now coaching outside linebackers at Tampa. And we went down and worked Danielle out, and he ran in the 4.5s. Freak type athlete, and we kind of fell in love with him on what we seen on tape as far as the potential there. The coaches identified, and I always ask the coaches, can we fix, because he wasn't very productive coming out, but what's the reason why? Is it some physical limitation? Is it a technique thing? And the coaches felt that if they were able to get their hands on him, they were going to be able to develop him and teach him how to rush the passer,
Mm-hmm.
because there was no physical limitations. And I give credit to them, and they did a phenomenal job developing Neil.
Yeah, 3 sacks in 2013, his sophomore season. Only 1.5 sacks in 2014, but he did have 13 tackles for loss that year and 6 passes defended. So those numbers don't jump off the screen at you, but to your point, that's why you're asking questions about it. Also, a clarification here. Debo notes that Pete has an honorable mentions list, and in order, Daniil would have been 103 and Kirk would have been 109. I don't know if that makes you feel any better or not.
I can sleep better tonight.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Pete, for that. A couple other names at the edge rusher position. Here, I'll start at the bottom, and you tell me where you're putting Daniil in terms of the top 100. Matt Judon's 99. Would you put him ahead of Judon?
Judon had a great year last year. He was very productive last year. So I would have Judon maybe a little higher up, but that was based off of, just last year. I don't know if Pete bases this top 100 just off of last year, or if he's basing it off of career.
I think it's a mix of last year and then going forward.
Yeah. So, but I'd put my money on Daniil.
And then Jalen Phillips was 95, who plays for the Dolphins. Trey Hendrickson was 91.
And I'll tell you why Jalen Phillips is on there, because he's Pete's, and I agree with Pete, breakout player of the year. He thinks he's going to have a monster year, especially with Nick Chubb behind him. He's another one that is a freak athlete that really hasn't hit his potential yet. But with Vic Fangio down there and that new defense, Jalen Phillips that name's going to be well known, I think, by the end of the season.
Yeah, had some injury concerns, transferred from UCLA to the U, and those are some of the issues surrounding where he might end up going drafted. Still went the first round. Ahead of him, Trey Hendrickson at 91, Brian Burns at 67, Hassan Reddick 64. It's hard to find a place where you're like, okay, this is clearly a position where you can squeeze in someone who maybe didn't make the list. So I'll give Pete credit for this list. Feels pretty well organized. Let me start at the top, though, because my guy's TJ Watt, and Rick has Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, and Micah Parsons ahead of TJ Watt. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, because TJ was hurt last year.
Right.
But TJ, look at Pittsburgh's record when TJ's on the field compared to when he's not on the field. So
yeah, night and day.
He's not there. They're a night and day defense with him on the field.
All right. Those were some of Rick's former draft picks that made the list. One didn't, and Daniil Hunter. And again, you can check all that out at Rick's Picks if you just search it on the YouTubes with the first pick, Rick's Picks. You can watch all of those. We have the link somewhere. Maybe we'll tweet those out on the with the first pick at NFL Draft CBS on Twitter, and check them out there. All right. Some of the numbers behind the list, and Debo put these together because Debo takes his job very seriously, Rick.
But he did put by position.
I have it by position.
I do too. You did it on a spreadsheet, which no one will teach me how to do a spreadsheet. So I actually did it by hand.
I love it.
Like 3 different times because someone keeps interrupting me, or I forgot where my spot was. And it's still not completely accurate. But
all right, we'll compare notes and we'll see. So Debo notes there are 57 first rounders, which checks out. That means that the scouting departments around the league are identifying the best players, and those players are working out for the most part. 19% went in the second round. 10% went in the third round. So quick math, 29 plus 57 is 86. Is that right?
Well, yeah, you're the guy that worked in the White House. You're the mathematician. I'm just a supporting actor. Just tell me what to do, and I'll try to do it.
Thank you, Debo. So 86% of these players were day 1 or day 2 players. And then 2 round 4 guys, 8% went in the 5th round. Only 1 in round 6, 2 in round 7. And finally, Austin Eckler, as I mentioned, was the only undrafted free agent to make the list. He just said the other day he's happy to be in Los Angeles, I guess because he has no other option, but he's going to make that team better for sure. All right, Rick, how many quarterbacks did you have on your list?
I broke it down by round.
Oh, you did rounds. Okay. I thought, well, Debo did that for us. I just read that out. Did you?
Yeah, no, but he did it. Did he do it by position by round?
No, I don't know. I can do that for you.
So how many quarterbacks were first rounders that were on the list?
Let's see here.
I'm going to say 7.
Oh, 7. Let's see. All right. I had to sort this. Give me a second. You're putting me on the
You
spot.
can actually
here.
sort things without having to handwrite them out.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. Let's see. Quarterbacks here. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. So all but one. So they're 8. 8 of the 9 are first rounders. The only one that isn't, Debo's guy, Jalen Hurts.
Yep. And according to my calculations, Debo, you're correct.
So I think the takeaway there, and it's Pete's list, and you can
see, I did my homework.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see Rick's handwritten homework. I joked earlier he's keeping the pencil industry in business all by himself. I think the lesson there is, Rick, that if you don't get your quarterback in the first round, and this isn't a revelation, but just to reconfirm, you're throwing darts because it's going to be tough to find a quarterback outside of round 1. And that's why these teams sometimes take risk in the first round, in addition to the 5th-year option, which you've talked about in the past. That's why you get your quarterback, and fingers crossed, hope it works out. So I get it. All right. 19 wide receivers. I mentioned that. Let me ask you this. We'll ask you.
Let me ask you without using your cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Give me the top 3 positions taken in the first round that were on Pete's list. And it wasn't quarterback.
Oh, okay. Offensive tackle.
Offensive tackle.
Edge rusher.
Edge rusher.
And cornerback.
Nope.
Oh.
Defensive tackle. Really?
Defensive tackle. Man.
Yeah.
Look at that. All right. That's funny. I was going to ask you a similar question. Well, you got the notes in front of you. What position was represented with the fewest number of players? The most players were wide receivers. I mentioned that. Which position had the fewest number of players on this list? Oh, you're cheating. I see you looking down.
Yeah, no, I can use my notes. Debo didn't say we had to memorize this.
It's like the spelling bee, man.
I am going to say interior offensive lineman.
Yep. 2 centers, 6 guards. There were only 5 off-ball linebackers, but I'll give you that. The 2 centers were Creed Humphrey. Do you know who the other one was?
They went in the second round.
This one,
one center went in the second round.
One went in the 6th round.
And one went in the 6th round, which was Kelsey.
You got it, Jason Kelsey. All right.
Debo, are you proud of me on all the work I put into this podcast with the information that you gathered for us?
I know it's a long time ago, but Rick, when you were in school, like when you were taking a test, would you be like looking at a sheet and the teacher was like, "You can't look at that," and you're like, "No, it's fine. Like I took these notes."
I made sure my classes had open book. I always took open book tests.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, Debo broke it down by school too. Look at Debo. No surprise here. How many of the schools on this list pay you as part of your side jobs? I see.
That information I cannot divulge.
I only see 1. Anyway, Alabama at the top. No surprise there. Are you looking at this part?
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking at it? I was going to make you guess.
No, I don't have that part.
All right. Well,
computer or my printer ran out of ink. So
ran out of pencil lead.
Blank page.
Oh my gosh. His computer ran out of pencil lead. Ohio State had 7 guys. They came in second. Clemson, Oklahoma, LSU. What's a surprise team on this list? Oh, here's a surprise team on the list. So there's a group of teams at the bottom that have 3 players each. Looks like 9 teams. One of these schools is not like the other, and that school is Cincinnati. There's Notre Dame, Penn State, Oregon, Ole Miss, and then you have Cincinnati sitting there with 3 players. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Who are the Cincinnati players on this list?
Kelsey, the tight end.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. All right.
Let me think. Sauce Gardner.
Yep.
The corner, 2.
Who's the other one?
And
probably don't have to think too hard.
No, you don't think too hard. I overthought that one. I'll give it to you. You got it. We'll say you said Kelsey's plural and then Sauce.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Alec Pierce? Des Ritter? No. Good job, Debo, on that.
Ryan, the one that stood out to me, won the past 2 national titles, and they're building towards it. Probably, will be up towards Alabama maybe in a few years, but Georgia only with 3, with the likes of Cincinnati and Iowa and some other schools on this list. But, I know it's more recent success, but you would kind of expect them to have more representation on this list.
Yeah, that to me says that Pete hates Georgia. So the Georgia players are Andrew Thomas, Nick Chubb, and Roquan Smith. That's interesting.
Stafford off the list this year.
No Stafford. So who are some of the Georgia players? Like
next year we'll have Keely Ringo, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis,
all the Eagles.
Jalen Carter.
I will bet $1 none of those guys make the list next year.
Not one of those guys?
How many are on the list? How many what is it? The Georgia Eagles. How many are there?
I bet you one of the 5 Georgia players on the Eagles will make that list. So that's Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Keely Ringo, and Nolan Smith.
Nolan Smith, yeah.
Okay, I'll take that $1 bet.
All right, put it down.
Euro.
So now, here's the thing. Don't worry about Rick paying off Pete, because Rick's so cheap. He's not going to pay over $1 to have Pete throw the bet.
No, I rely on my integrity. And if Pete gives one of those guys number 100, I will pay the $1 gladly.
All right, Rick, let's talk about some of the rookies on this list here. And you mentioned Sauce Gardner. I mentioned Chris Olave earlier, I believe. 2 other names, Garrett Wilson and Tariq Woolen, made the list. So Sauce Gardner is the number 2 overall cornerback. Should he be number 1?
No, I would give him. He's only done it for 1 year.
Okay. All right, you're okay with that. Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 12. Chris Olave is at 15. Are you okay with Olave being on this list?
No,
Garrett Wilson
should have been lower. He's top 100, but I think he should be lower than that.
And Tariq Woolen, who had 6 interceptions last year, I believe, he is also on the list. He came in at 86 overall. He's the number 6 cornerback. I'm okay with that.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
All right. Any other rookies that you thought maybe should have been on there that weren't?
Yes. I can't believe he snubbed Kenneth Walker III.
My guy, Ken Walker.
Seattle. Did you know, and doing my research, is that his last 3 games, he rushed for over 100 yards. He ended up having over 1,000 yards for the season. I know he got hurt a little bit, but his best game was 167 yards on 23 carries at the Chargers. So he averaged about 4.6 per carry. But when you go back and look at the rookie of the years, you know that he was the number 1, had the most first place votes out of any offensive rookie last year with 19. And
I
then
did not know that.
Wilson had 18, but Garrett Wilson had 19 second place votes, which passed Kenneth Walker. But Kenneth Walker actually had the most first place votes last year. So that was my rookie that should have been on the top 100 that was snubbed.
No, I actually like that. And my fun fact about Kenneth Walker III is that he prefers to be called Ken, which for some reason no one listens to. Like he told us that at the combine, and everyone still calls him Kenneth for some reason. But he's a great player. Like he's a fun player. Transferred from Wake Forest to Michigan State because of that weird sort of slow mesh offense to run at Wake Forest. He wanted an opportunity to play in more of a pro style offense, and he hit the ground running at Michigan State 2 seasons ago and parlayed that into being a 2nd-round pick. And now is part of a really good team in Seattle that is going to have a chance to make some noise in that division if my guy Geno Smith continues.
Why do you think Pete excluded him from the list?
Well, here's the thing. Pete, I think he excluded Minkah Fitzpatrick a few years ago. I think he excluded him. Either that or he had him really low. And then Pete had to go on a podcast, and maybe he did it on HQ, had to explain to BMAC and I think Cam Hayward and maybe even Minkah at some point what he messed up. And Pete tried to defend himself, but I think if Pete were being honest, he would say he just overlooked him, which happens when you're putting together a list of.
Yeah, 100. But if I'm not mistaken, he didn't even make the honorable mention list.
Debo, is he on the honorable mention list?
Give me a second. I don't have it memorized.
Jeez, what? Did you guys do research before this thing?
Yeah, boy, that's a no. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe Ken Walker is this year's Minkah Fitzpatrick in terms of being disrespected by Pete Prisco. So, but you also mentioned Kirk Cousins. He didn't make the honorable mention list. He got the short end of the straw there. And another name we'll mention before we take a break in terms of guys getting not getting the recognition that perhaps history says they deserve. What do you think about Russ Wilson? Is that okay that he's off this list?
Yeah, he didn't play very good last year.
Okay.
History, but last year there was absolutely no way he should be on this list.
But if we're doing the Jalen Phillips, this is going to be a breakout year for him. What if we're doing the Russ Wilson's going to have success with Sean?
Well, Russ Wilson's not 24 years old.
Okay.
So he has to see if he can still do what he was able to do at his age. So I can identify with that.
All right, fair enough. All right, we'll take a quick break and come back. I'm going to tell you some more of the players that I think got screwed by Pete Prisco on this list, and we'll talk about some players that have a chance to make it next year after really good rookie seasons.
They say patience is a virtue, but for some things, we can't wait.
What were you going to say, Rick, before the commercial cut you off so rudely?
No, the commercial cut me off, and now I forgot what I was going to say. It was so good, too. Debo, we didn't clarify. Did Ken or Walker even make honorable mention or no?
No, he did not.
Ooh, all right, take it out with Pete. All right, let me throw some names at you, Rick, and you tell me whether they should have made the list or not. We've talked about Danielle Hunter. What about Jared Goff?
I see the one that really bothered me was Justin Fields on there.
Okay.
I understand how fast he ran and he ran for over 1,000 yards and all that stuff. But to me, Cousins and Goff were both better quarterbacks than Justin Fields was last year. Now, and also that changes this year, and maybe Pete thinks he's going to be, because I think he's going to be one of those breakout Jalen Hurst Tua type players this year. So maybe he was anticipating that, but I was surprised that Justin Fields was ahead of those two.
Dak Prescott.
Yeah, although Dak is there's some questions on Dak.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, he had some tough stretches. One of my favorite players.
102.
Was Jared on there at all, Jared Goff? While you look for that, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite players. Oh, he wasn't on there. Okay. Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett to me is chronically undervalued, and I think he's secretly one of the best players in the league at the wide receiver position.
I would agree. I think he is.
Okay.
He does a lot for Seattle and has had a very productive career. Would you take Lockett ahead of, well, Kirk, I believe, was on the list and down in Jacksonville.
Let me see. I don't know if Kirk was. Yeah, he was. He was 87. I would take Lockett over Kirk, even though Kirk had a pretty good year. I get it. It's close. And I'm not throwing shade, as the kids say at Pete. This is actually a tough job. We just like to give him a hard time. All right, I'm going to mention a group of guys, and you tell me if you would take any of these guys on this list. Khalil Mack, Cameron Jordan, or Keenan Allen. None of these guys made the list.
No, I think they all were getting long tooth and didn't have as productive of years as they have in the past.
All right. I got it.
Ryan,
right.
How does kind of Pete try to clarify his list? He tries to say projecting into 2023 while also looking at past performance, just to kind of clarify that. Not that we need to defend Pete.
Yeah. And that explains Russ Wilson to Rick's point. Russ isn't a spring chicken, number one, and number two, last year was terrible. So he's going to have to win the Super Bowl for him to get back on Pete's list. It feels like he's got to have a really good season. Whereas Jalen Phillips is on the up, and he's a young player who's explosive, great athlete, and stays healthy. He's going to have a really good, likely to have a really good season. All right. I'm just going to go right to it. I don't see it on the rundown, Debo, but I'm maybe misreading it. The player that I think, my biggest snub. This is just my biggest overall snub. I don't know if you have that or not, Rick. I misread Debo's instructions. So your guy might be Ken Walker.
Yeah, you do it every time.
I do it every time. But here's a question. I'm legitimately concerned, and maybe I misread it. Maybe this guy's on the list. Maybe he's on the honorable mention list, Debo. But where's Javon Hargrave?
Was he not? Yeah, I think he was on the honorable mention list.
Honorable mention down the list a little bit.
Yeah. That dude was dominant.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, the way he played last year and the number that he got from a contract standpoint was definitely I mean, this should have been considered on that top 100 list.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought I'd get more of a reaction out of that, but Team Javon here is fighting a lonely battle. All right. Most likely from this list to make a leap next year. That's the question Debo asked. Second-year players on Pete's honorable mention list who didn't make it: Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, Charles Cross, the left tackle for Seattle. We talked about the Seattle team a little bit. Christian Watson, the wide receiver, second-round pick for the Packers, and Kyle Hamilton, who fell into the first round lower than people thought in the media, went to the Ravens, in part because he ran in the 4.6s, so on and so forth. Any of these guys catch your attention, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, Cross does, and they talk about it, but I think Abraham's
Abraham's a good one. The right tackle.
the right tackle, who was a third-round pick out of Washington State,
Yep.
should have been on that list, and I think he's even going to take another step forward. He was one of my favorite guys in our last draft. We took Darrisaw, but he was on our board pretty high as well.
Yeah, and both those guys came in immediately and started, and we compared a little bit, if you want to go back and listen to last week's podcast, sort of the Buccaneers trajectory with Baker Mayfield and what the Seahawks were able to do with a revitalized Geno Smith. And the big part of that was getting the offensive line sorted, getting the running game sorted, and now they're trying to get that defense back up to snuff. But they've done a lot of things right in Seattle, and the Buccaneers are going to have sort of that /luck success to be competitive in that post-Tom Brady world. But Abe Lucas and Charles Cross were a big part of that. Aiden Hutchinson feels like the easy one for me. He had 9 sacks last year. I think he had 3 forced fumbles and 3 interceptions, like a crazy stat for an edge rusher. And the question with him, and I asked him this at the combine. I didn't want to because he was one of my favorite players, but Pete kept saying, he's reached his ceiling. He's reached his ceiling. And what Aiden said is, I'm 21 years old. How could I have possibly reached my ceiling? And I agreed 100%. And we saw how I remember watching him after sophomore year, because there's some talk that he might be a player to watch. And I wasn't that impressed. And junior year or the next year got a little better. I don't know if he came out his senior year, but his final year, he turned it on at Michigan. And then he has continued to get better as a rookie. And I think that the arrow's pointing up on him. And I think he has a chance to be better than Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't think he's a better athlete, but I think in terms of what he's able to do and how he's able to do it right now, he's a better football player.
Yeah, I probably, maybe I'm overreaching here a little bit, but I think he has some Jared Allen in him.
Okay, that's not overreaching. He had a great rookie season.
Yeah, no, just he may not be the athlete that Thibodeau is, but Jared Allen wasn't a great athlete, but he knew how to rush the passer and knew how to work the edges of blockers. And I can see Hutchinson going that same way.
Let me mention, the reason I'm mentioning Pete here, because this is his list, but Pete said during the last draft cycle that one of the issues he had with Will Anderson, that he wasn't twitched up, and that if Will only gets 9 or 10 sacks a year, he's more likely to be that guy than a guy who gets 16 to 18 sacks, which sounds insane. But here's the thing. If Will Anderson has the rookie season that Aiden Hutchinson has, I would imagine the Texans will be ecstatic.
Yeah, no, for a rookie to come in and get 9 or 10 sacks his first year, that would be a huge success for a rookie.
All right. So, speaking of these rookies, what are you going to say?
No, I actually agree with you.
All right. Pete Prisco brings everyone together.
Alongside of my good friend, CBS Sports draft analyst, Ryan Wilson.
I looked down for a second. I was like, why is Rick going into the speech? And I looked up and you had your little Hawaiian shirt on there for Memorial Day, I believe. All right. Speaking of rookies, let's talk about some of the rookies.
It's not Hawaiian. It's an island shirt, even though technically Hawaii's an island, but it's a Sanibel Island shirt.
Oh, Sanibel Island. Okay. I don't want to disrespect Sanibel Island shirts. Fair enough. Thank you for the clarification. All right. We talked about Will Anderson. Let's talk about some of these other rookies who we think have the best shot of making Pete's list next year. We know with almost 100% certainty that none of the Eagles rookies will make the list. You've made that clear with your $1 bet. Any other rookies that get your attention that perhaps have a chance to have some success?
Yeah, no, I think there are a lot of them. And you look at, when's the last time, and this was the one that I was struggling back and forth with. I think Bijan Robinson, because of the role he's going to have, he's going to be potentially offensive rookie of the year lead candidate, just because of how many times he's going to be able to touch the ball. I put Will Anderson up there as a guy. If he gets 9 or 10 sacks, should definitely be on this list. But apparently 9 sacks and 3 interceptions is not good enough for Pete as a rookie. So
Nope.
so let's
Hayden
not.
was 101, by the way, just to note that 101.
How many 101s does he have on this list? 10 different guys are 101.
And then my guy that I was debating back and forth, and just to irritate Pete, was Bryce Young.
Why are you debating that?
I'm not debating that, but the last time a quarterback, according to my research, Debo, that you didn't do for me, I did myself, was that one Rookie of the Year, which I will always remember because I thought Justin Jefferson deserved that, was Herbert.
Yeah.
That ended up beating out Justin Jefferson that year for Rookie of the Year. But I think Bryce, because I put him as a plus. I think, Debo, you only said we were allowed to have 3. I can't remember what the total rule was.
You're allowed to have 4 if you want, Rick.
No.
Okay.
If you think 4 guys are going to make the list next year, who's that 4th one?
Who was the 4th one I had on there?
You had Dalton Kincaid.
Oh, the tight end up in Buffalo.
Yep.
But now that Stephon Diggs is going to be calling plays, I get many opportunities. I did not.
Going to account for that.
Mm-mm.
Here's the thing. No quarterback made it last year. No rookie quarterback made it last year on Pete's list, but also keep in mind the only rookie drafted in the first round was Kenny Pickett. We had the whole Matt Corral and Malik Willis situation. Des Riddle will get a chance to play this year. And there was a 5th quarterback who I can't even – Sam Howell's will get a chance to play this year. So maybe that changes. But in terms of quarterbacks drafted 2 years ago who made Pete's list, Pete's best friend in the world, Trevor Lawrence, made it. At 23, I mean, that feels sort of high, but whatever. Justin Fields at 78. You've talked about him already. So it feels reasonable that Bryce can make this list, and maybe CJ, if things go right for him, has a chance. Anthony Richardson feels like a long shot just because he's so young in terms of inexperience. But, hey, never say never, I suppose. So, yeah, you took the low-hanging fruit. Bijan, the running back, he's going to get a ton of work. Will Anderson, if he does some Aiden Hutchinson things, I think he certainly deserves to be on the list. But I do wonder if Pete will subconsciously or otherwise hold a grudge against Will Anderson because he knows that, he was.
I don't know if he has a bigger grudge against Will Anderson or Bryce Young.
And Bryce Young is the other one. Bryce could throw 60 touchdowns, and Bryce might not make the list.
No.
Well, he threw 35 interceptions. So, yeah, I think Bryce has a realistic chance. And I think, I don't know what the odds are. I don't know if Vegas does odds for rookies making Pete Prisco's top 100 list, but he might be at the top of that list.
Now, going back a couple years ago, just talking about just the year after.
Yeah.
Obviously, no one last year. 2021, even with Pete's guy, Trevor Lawrence, not surprising that he didn't make the top 100 after his rookie year, but neither did Justin Fields, Mac Jones, anyone in that class. You have to go back to 2020 draft for someone to make the list the following year with Burrow and Herbert.
Oh, okay. And those guys both balled out. So I don't think we're going to see, I think you would agree, Rick, we're not going to see a Justin Herbert / Joe Burrow type season from Bryce Young in Carolina in year 1, are we?
But you just said it. You never know. Out of everyone that can do it, Bryce Young.
That is true. And as I was asking you the question, I was like, well, maybe, because the Bengals stunk when Joe Burrow got there. They were a terrible football team. And he, not single-handedly, they put some players, Duke Tobin had the players sort of, everything was coming together as Joe Burrow arrived. And you sort of get that sense of Carolina. All right, well, we'll see. Bryce Young is going to be your Joe Burrow as it is to Pete. Like Pete loves Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. All right, my list of 3 rookies who have a chance to make the list next year. I'm going to take a page out of the Tariq Woolen playbook, and I'm going with Emmanuel Forbes, who had 4,000 career interceptions in college. And look, he's 166. We know that, but he's over 6 feet. He ran into the 4.3s. He's a ball hawk. You saw him live, and you were on him back in the fall, and you were impressed with seeing him in person. And that translates. Like if you get turnovers and interceptions in high school, typically that follows you to college, and if you get to the NFL, typically it follows you there. So I like the idea of Emmanuel Forbes making a little noise. I don't know if he's going to get 6 like Tariq Woolen did, but I think he has a chance to be an impact player in Washington early on. Then I went with wide receiver Jordan Addison. out of Pitt and USC, who was drafted by the Vikings. We talked about, making salary cap room for Justin Jefferson and eventually Christian Darrisaw, and you need to do that. But I think this will be an opportunity in a post-Adam Thielen world for Jordan Addison to get some of those looks as teams double and triple and quadruple team or whatever, Justin Jefferson. And Kirk Cousins is a veteran-savvy quarterback. Hopefully he'll find Jordan Addison, and he'll have an opportunity to test some success there. And finally, a little wild card, a guy whose name's been buzzing on the social medias, Rick, at Tennessee camp. Not Will Levis, Tyjae Spears, running back out of Tulane. There were some injury concerns with him through the draft process. You didn't see it on the field, the way he finished his career at Tulane, the way he played at the Senior Bowl. He was one of the best players there. He is the nice yin to Derrick Henry's yang, if you want, in terms of size and the way he plays the running back position. He can give you something as a receiver. He's a shifty sort of third down type back. And I think he could get an opportunity to be a part of that offense, whether Henry's healthy or otherwise. But I think Ryan Tannehill isn't the answer, so I think they may lean more on the running game, and we know that Mike Vrabel likes to do that. What do you think about those three players?
Yeah, Spears is the only one I'd be a little hesitant with because I think King Henry's going to get the bulk of the carries. He'll come in and spell him in some third down stuff, I imagine, and catching the ball out of the backfield, but I don't see him having the impact like a Kenneth Walker or somebody like that.
Let me ask you, and you didn't do the game plan, of course, but Henry's 29. Do you still want to just run him into the ground, or do you want to limit his mileage now that he's...
They're going to have to. They don't have any receivers. They don't have a tight end.
Okay.
Then they have Tannehill.
Okay, fair enough.
So if you want to generate offense, it's going to have to go through him.
All right, well, he better stay healthy. Hope he's doing his sit-ups and push-ups right now.
He is.
Okay, yeah, he looks like he probably is. All right, you talked about Bryce Young as your leading candidate to be the rookie to make Pete's list next year. I think that's fair. CJ Stroud, what do you put his chances at? I think a lot has to go right at Houston.
Yeah, I don't think him. I think the guy right behind Bryce that may make the most noise just because of his athleticism would be Anthony Richardson. Maybe not all throwing, but he's going to do some things that I think are going to open your mouth when you watch some of the things that he does athletically on the field next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Richardson ends up having a big year for Indy. Whether they're going to be good or not, that's another thing. But I think Anthony Richardson will kind of, because of his athleticism, take the NFL similar, not saying he's going to be Lamar Jackson, but something like that, or Cam Newton, or any of these other freak athletic quarterbacks that come in as rookies who may not be great throwers right initially, but they can make plays off their athleticism.
Right now, on the record, I want you to tell me what you're going to do if a year from now Will Levis is on this list and your guy Bryce Young is not.
Well, then it's a fix. It's all fixed.
The witch hunt. It's rigged.
It's rigged.
All right. I just want to have you on record for that. All right. All right. That's it. We are done, Debo. That's a wrap on episode 60. 60 episodes. My goodness. You spent a lot of time with me, Rick. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I can't wait for episode 61 coming up on Thursday.
That's right. So in the meantime, remember, give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the old podcast. Leave a 5-star review. Thanks as always to my guy, Rick. Thanks to Debo for producing, and thanks to all you guys out there who watch and listen. As Rick notes, we'll see you back here on Thursday.